Hello and welcome to another episode of the Monday Night Wars. It is December 16th, 1996, and we are live with 2 hours of WCW Nitro at the Pensacola Civic Center in Pensacola, Florida, if you could believe it. With me, as always, is Joseph Rojas. Joseph, how you doing, my friend?
Well, today's my flu game. I'm like Michael Jordan out here. I got a fever of 100 degrees, and I'm a do everything. I'm gonna hit you with the shrug, even though that's a completely different game.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna drop 80 points tonight. You're gonna go
Well,
off.
Michael Jordan never dropped no 80 points.
But you are.
Ooh.
But you are.
Just one short of Kobe, as it should be.
Mm-hmm. Because we got to, but we got you on load management. So we're recording fewer than we planned today. But don't worry, folks. I guess we should talk about Netflix and what's going on here, and to tell all of our listeners, babies, don't be worried. We got a contingency plan. So, just you want to talk about it, or you want me to talk about it?
Yeah. So Netflix, they're getting Raw. I think it's January 5th or 6th, one of those days that they're getting Raw. And so all of Raw is leaving Peacock. And so the problem is that Netflix has not committed to actually uploading all of Raw. Now, there is this interesting thing where WWE filed a trademark the other day for Raw Vault, which is something they've been doing on YouTube. They've been doing this thing called WWE Vault. And with that, what they've been doing is like posting old things, but it's not like linear. It's like specific moments and stuff, which has been cool. It's nice kind of big moments in WWE history. So it seems like they're going to do the same thing with Raw, but again, won't be linear. They won't be putting every single one on there. So we scrambled and we went through the highs and lows of depression to figure out what we were going to do. Cause we were like, dude, does this show end here? But it does not. Scott found a way.
Yeah, don't tell anybody. We don't want people knowing this and getting it shut down. So we found a place that has every episode of Raw and Nitro during the Monday Night Wars. We're very happy about it because that was the thing, right? They were only going to have it seemed like it was going to be Netflix do like Raw going forward and some pay-per-views kind of like on an ad hoc basis and like no Nitro, no WCW, nothing.
Right.
And so we thought we were done.
Yeah.
Joseph,
we were talking about like, is there a different kind of podcast we want to do? We were both depressed about the amount of work we've put into this one. Like, what do we do?
Yeah. Joseph was trying to think of ways to pivot. And I was like, man, if it's not going to be wrestling, I'm not going to do it. Cause like, that's what people are listening for our Monday Night War wrestling takes. And maybe we could just turn into more of a more traditional wrestling pod where we're talking about the news of the day and that sort of stuff or whatever, or reviewing shows that are on right now. But it's going to really be sad that we were going to have to end this only like 2 years in. This is our second year.
Yeah.
And we got more Raw, more Nitro, more things to get really upset about. Yeah. That's Raw for the next year. but we found a website that has them all. So the show must go on. Pay-per-views can be a little bit harder. I think we're gonna have to try and find those any way we can. Maybe we'll just buy old VHSs on eBay and watch the old VHSs.
Oh, dude, that'd be sick.
That could be kind of hot. Yeah. Watching the old VHSs, the old Coliseum videos. This might be the move.
Oh, Jamie would hate me. Just the whole VHS collection of old pay-per-views.
Oh, but the box art, bro, it's hot. You get Sean doing his Thiz face.
I was just gonna say it's gonna be the same Sean face over and over.
50 boxes.
Yeah,
ridiculous. Anyways, all of that was just to tell you that we aren't done. This is Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving.
Hate that movie.
I actually like that movie. That movie. I think you thought that I really liked that movie. Like it was one of my favorite movies of all time. It is not. I enjoy it. It has problems, but I overall enjoy the movie. There are some good lines in that movie. Like
I love the Matthew McConaughey scene. That scene is phenomenal.
That scene's great. I actually really like Jonah Hill in it. I think he's great in that character of just being just a complete degenerate. And
well, because he's playing Jonah Hill.
God bless him. Yeah, I've seen This Is the End. Oh no, wait, and This Is the End. He's really nice, right? Michael Cera is the complete degenerate.
All I know about Jonah Hill is that Jay Baruchel fucking hates him.
Whatever, man. All I gotta say is Jonah Hill is my favorite line in that movie at the end where he goes, I gotta tell you, man, I'm never going to a Benihana's again. I don't care whose birthday it is, which is just ridiculous. Because the Benihana's guy got raided by the FBI for doing illegal shit and gave up Jordan Belfort. That's how it really happened in real life. And so that was the whole point of that. But anyways, that Benihana has nothing to do with WCW. Let's see, do we have any Asian wrestlers wrestling? We do.
I was gonna say, is Sonny Ono around? Because they're making this weird racial thing lately. So
he is. He actually is. So well, but I can't make. Dude, if he'd gone first, that'd have been the segue. Speaking of Benihana, Sonny Ono's here tonight. But let's get into it. We got hour number 1. We got Tony. We got Larry. And we got Eric Bischoff and Ted DiBiase coming over to take over the broadcast booth. They kicked Tony out like mid-sentence. They said, get out of here. And Zbyszko, our boy, he ready to go. He's ready to fight. And there's like, nah, step aside. Step aside. And then we get the flashback to last week when Eric and Roddy have their confrontation. But they don't show the part where, where he gets his ass beat. What do you think about all this?
I mean, overall, I liked it. Bischoff and DiBiase, that like you said, they said they're in our spot, blah blah, get out. I do like that Zbyszko is pretty defiant, and Shivani's kind of a coward, and like he just bolts immediately. And then Bischoff threatens to fire Zbyszko, and Vincent walks him out. And Bischoff declares this NWO Monday Night Nitro, then shows clips, like you said, from last week. He calls Piper a coward, which is kind of their ongoing shtick they've been having with Piper. They keep calling him a coward, even though they keep avoiding him. And DiBiase agrees, pointing out that Piper could only attack a corporate man and not another wrestler, which I thought was a very good line from DiBiase, because it's kind of true. There's a bit of truth to it. Bischoff is not a wrestler, and Piper absolutely clobbered him. I mean, that was goddamn. I wouldn't be surprised if Bischoff told him, like, just fucking lay into me, because he did. And so I actually thoroughly enjoyed this opening. I gave it a B+.
Yeah, Bischoff, to his credit in real life, he was willing to do what was necessary for the show, like getting power bombed through the stage and all of that. Like he did,
or like hitting on like really fucking old women in a creepy way.
We'll get there. Or did we already do that? Or have we
no,
that's NWO. That's when he's with NWO. Yeah. Oh God, yeah, that's something else.
Yep.
But we got breaking news. We got the WCW World Television Championship belt on Nitro. The television title, the title that should be on television, that is only on Saturday night, 6:05. It is on Nitro. We got the champion Steve Enrico going against Psychosis. 11 minutes, 8 seconds. Tell me about it, Joseph.
That's just beautiful, man. That's just beautiful. Also, I'm starting to feel it at this point. We've recorded one episode because we had to get the pay-per-view, and I am ready already. Bischoff says Sting is here and that he is NWO. Bischoff reminds the audience that the clock is ticking on WCW members converting their contracts to NWO contracts, which is obviously something that's been pretty big going on the last few weeks. We've seen a few people defect. He also says there's a huge surprise for NWO fans later tonight. Psychosis. Oh, Thronanonga. Man, if you listen to the pay-per-view, you know Thronanonga. Yeah. I'm going to have a lot of Thronanonga today.
$2, and you can find out all of our inside references.
Yeah, I'm not going to explain it. I'm just going to say it. Oh, man. Psychosis and Regal don't have perfect chemistry, but this is still a very fun TV match. Regal ultimately wins a lengthy, hard-fought bout with the Regal stretch. Bischoff does a horrible British accent, and I love it because it just works with the heel character. And again, I do like heel Bischoff, even though I don't think he should be in NWO. Regardless, I gave this a B. It was a fun TV opener. I enjoy. Is a better fucking opener than the pay-per-view last night. But again, $2 a month if you want to hear about that.
I agree. I thought it was a pretty good match. I mean, it's Steven Regal and Psychosis. It's fine. I'm gonna keep rolling though, because we gotta hustle because you are losing your will to live. After that, we get a flashback to Sting and Rick Steiner. They going at it. They got problems. We've talked about it before. I don't feel like we need to talk about it again unless you have any thoughts, Joseph.
Nope.
All right, now let's keep rolling. Rolling. What, Big Bubba? Versus Chavo. You've missed it. You love it. It's back. Chavo Guerrero Jr. versus Big Bubba Rogers. Only 2 minutes and 53 seconds, though. Tell me, Joseph, why so short?
Like you said, we have missed it. We haven't seen Chavo in a minute, and he tries to use his speed, but ultimately Bubba just decimates him outside the ring. Chavo does make a fiery comeback, but Bubba hits the sidewalk slam for the win. This, honestly, to me, is one of the best starts of Nitro we've seen in a while. Predominantly, they've been putting all of their marbles into hour number 2, and this first hour so far has been pretty good. I'm giving this a B as well. Even though it is short, it was fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed. I'm actually pretty disappointed in the start of this Nitro because it doesn't allow me to ask you the question if you think that they hold the best stuff totally hour 2 on purpose. It's very disappointing to me.
Yeah.
But then we go live to Benny Hannes because we got Mean Gene Okerlund at Mean Gene's Benny Hannes. Because we got Masashiro Chono.
Uh-huh.
Did I say it right?
Well, it's Masahiro Chono, so you're really close on it.
All right, Masahiro Chono. I'm white, bro. I can't say these things. And Sonny Ono, they got an interview. And, apparently Chono has not renewed his contract with New Japan. So it sounds like he might be a free agent. And Ono says, we're negotiating. And they show some shirts. We got a New Japan t-shirt. But then Chono says, you know what? I kind of like this NWO shirt. Is the NWO going worldwide?
It sure is, Scott.
Is the New World Order the new worldwide order? Tell me, Joseph, what do you make of all this?
I love this for 2 reasons. Number one, it's somebody that we haven't really seen. It's kind of an outsider. We have not seen Masahiro Chono yet in WCW. So it works a little bit better than just like the, no offense to Big Bubba or Mike Wall Street, but their inclusions in the NWO don't really work. I get what they're trying to do. I just don't really agree with it. I like this one a lot better. I also like this one a lot better because Masahiro Chono, who was a huge star in New Japan Pro Wrestling, will become the leader of NWO Japan. So this is actually kind of why they gave him this role. He'll wrestle on WCW quite a bit over the next year or so, but he'll really kind of be leading that faction. And so a lot of really big, not really big stars, but a lot of people who will have big careers in New Japan, like Scott Norton, will really be part of that faction. So it's kind of like a momentous moment in the, like you said, international kind of global landscape of wrestling. Not really from a purely WCW American TV perspective, because he'll never be like a huge title holder. I think he does win the US championship here or there, but he'll never be like the guy. But he will be in Japan. Like that, it's really important for Japan. Like when Great Muta ends up joining NWO Japan, that's huge too. So I like that. And then, honestly, not only is this good, and I gave it a B, but it just rolls right into the match, which I like as well.
What a segue. Let's get into the match because we got Chono versus Chris Jericho, 5 minutes, 49 seconds. Tell me.
During this match, Bischoff does an incredibly racist Japanese accent that was completely acceptable for 1996. And I do need that to be clear, because if you watch it, yes, it's cringeworthy. This is 1996. He probably would not have seen it as offensive. I doubt that he would do that today. But also, there's kind of a weird part of this from a historical standpoint that, and Scott, you could probably go into this because I tried looking into it. I don't really know why. But the late 90s and early 2000s, it was a huge boom to talk about and have media and movies, TV shows, whatever about World War II. Like it was this huge rejuvenation of like or revival of like rightfully respecting the heroes and the fallen of World War II. So by proxy, that also kind of meant that like racism towards Japan was also on the upswing. On top of that, not only was the World War II stuff, but also the fact that, and there's actually a Simpsons episode that goes into this, there's the fact that Japan, as they started in, their industries started really taking off, they started going into America and buying a lot of American businesses and really kind of making their way into the American market, which was fine, by the way, but Americans really did not like. So this is a weird time. So the accent really isn't like horrible, but it is racist. And I don't think he would do that today, but hey, he does it at this time. It's very common, not just him, a lot of people. At the end of this match, though, Jericho gets hung up on the ropes during what's honestly a very scary spot because he's hung up by his ankle. And Chono beats him up and then gets disqualified for it. And I gave the match itself a B.
Good match. I liked it. Jericho and Chono's a great wrestler. And obviously so is Chris Jericho. Everyone knows him. But maybe our listeners may not be as big of fans of like New Japan. I'm honestly not a huge fan of New Japan either. I really only know about New Japan through the guys I saw on WCW and on AEW and those sorts of things. But I do know who Chono is. Obviously, he's a big deal. And he wrestles on WCW a lot, and he's great. And then everyone knows Chris Jericho, and obviously Chris Jericho is great too. So good match. And you're right, this kind of a banger start to WCW when the first hour has really been lagging the last couple of weeks. This is a pretty good week. And then we got 605, because it's going to keep rolling, bro. This week is going to be hot all the way through. 605 Saturday night on the Superstation. Outsiders are in competition. Apparently, they got a 3-on-2 handicap match going on. Jeff Jarrett, Diamond Dallas Page, Scott Norton, Lex Luger, Eddie Guerrero, Wall Street. They're all going to be there. 605 Saturday night. Sounds pretty good. They got good. 605 Saturday night is better than Raw. Let's just be real.
You're not wrong.
That card is better than Raw.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all.
Then we go to a flashback. We go to the Ric Flair, Rowdy Roddy Piper segment that we loved from last week, where they're just talking about all the crazy shit they used to do, and then how they're gonna beat everybody's ass, and oldest ride with the longest line, my friend, and Kevin Green, and we got Kevin Green. Kevin Green is back. And he's got a bone to pick with some people. What'd you make of the flashback? Do we need to say anything more about it, or should people just listen to last week?
No, just listen to last week. We talked about it already.
I like it. But we're not done yet, because Mean Gene brings out Ric Flair. They're at Mean Gene's Waffle House. Keep the Benihana kind of thing going. Mean Gene's now got a Waffle House because this is the South. And we got Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Steve, and Deborah McMichael. Ric Flair looking fly, I gotta say. He's looking good because he's out. He's injured. And I love the way Ric Flair dresses. He is so good at everything he does. He's got the slacks and the shirt and the gaiters on. It's ridiculous. He's so good at playing the part at all times. Double A's there. He said, I'm gonna whoop some ass tonight. He's gonna whoop Kevin Sullivan's ass. And we wish him great success. And then Deborah.
Yep.
And then Deborah. It's good. This is all good. And then there's Deborah.
Yep.
And Mongo.
Yep.
Tell me about it, Joseph.
After Mean Gene calls Flair the 13-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion, DiBiase points out that means he's also lost it 3 times too, because remember, DiBiase is still on commentary with Bischoff. Arn says, over the course of history, the kiss of a beautiful woman has poisoned the minds of great men. Really good line. He says, Sullivan, yours wasn't the first, and Benoit, yours won't be the last. Another great line. He takes umbrage at being targeted and blamed by Sullivan, but says he will mend Sullivan's broken heart tonight. So I think he's going to sleep with the Taskmaster. I guess his spine won't be the only thing that's busting, if you know what I mean.
Waggity smaggity doo. That's at least not as horrible as your joke on the Patreon, which $2 a month you can listen to and just hear me just start screaming.
Let's be clear, the joke was great. Flair randomly tells Benoit just to keep doing what he's doing, which makes me laugh so hard because it's like he does the exact opposite of Arn. And then Deborah is incensed by this, and Deborah, unfortunately for the fans, talks and says, who cares about that nasty little Nancy, and calls Benoit a little boy who has hit on her in the past, but she doesn't go for little boys, which is such an odd thing to say. Like, I get what she's trying to say, but it's a really awkward way of phrasing it. Then she wants to talk about herself. She talks about how beautiful she is and that she is Miss Texas. And again, that sash should say Miss Four Horsemen, but whatever. She says the women in the industry wouldn't have a dog's chance at winning a beauty pageant. I'm not sure if this is a dig at WWF with Sunny and Sable, but also if we are talking pure looks, Sunny and Sable are far more attractive and less noisy. Also, Deborah says she beat over 200 women for her titles, but Sunny beat a guy to death with her car, so that's got to give her some sort of edge.
Oh my God. What are you doing? The flu has addled your mind. You're trying to get us sued left and right here.
Mongo warns Arn about Sullivan and tells him to meet him fire with fire, which I actually thought was fine from Mongo. Flair says that Hogan will pay the price to Piper. Flair has lost his voice by this point, which I don't really know how because he hadn't done a whole lot. He had to have been sick or something. Arn was so good in this, and really nobody else was, but I'm still going to give this a C.
I liked Ric Flair losing his voice. Just, I don't know. I laughed. I laughed at it when it happened because it's just like, Ric's just insane. Also, while you were talking, just so the folks know, for no particular reason, I just want everyone to know that Steve Mongo McMichael and Stone Cold Steve Austin are the same height, 6'2". So neither of them, I guess, are little guys. I'm just throwing it out there for no particular reason. 6'2", both of them. Weird. Weird how they're both the same height. Yeah. Surely nothing will come of that.
Nope, not at all.
Anyways, let's get into our next match. Because we got the World Cruiserweight Champion, Dean Malenko, going against Dave Sammartino. And yes, he is Bruno Sammartino's son. This is a big get, right? The famous Sammartino family. We'll never see him again. 2 minutes, 57 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know if I said it's a big get. David Sammartino tried to have a career as a wrestler. Bruno Sammartino was not fond of that, did not want him to do that. Because obviously he knew the hazards, especially of the time. You know, nowadays you might be willing to let that happen with the, you know, the kind of the ability to take care of people, which you didn't have at that time. And so he really didn't want his son to go through those things. And his son decided to anyways. He had a little career in WWF with also Bruno, where they kind of had them team together. It never really came to anything. And eventually him and Bruno actually had a falling out. As recently as 2010, David was estranged from his father over the fact that David admitted to taking steroids to get his impressive physique. Now, that's the last time I could find that reported. So obviously that was many years ago, almost 15. So hopefully they have been able to, or that they were able to mend the bridges in the meantime. But, you know, we don't know. Meanwhile, this match is seemingly very brief, and Malenko wins with a butterfly roll-up. The match is fine, but it's not amazing. I gave it a C.
Yeah, the whole David Sammartino story is kind of wild. Like, I was reading up on it because when I went to check, I was like, is this really? Because they do this all the time, right? Where they just give someone the last name and say, yeah, you're Bruno Sammartino's son, even though his name's like Don Johnson or something like that. But this really is his son. And there's this interesting story about how, because he only wrestled in the WWF from 84 to 85, and he punched a fan that spat on him. That's how he got fired, because he punched a fan who spat on him and apparently got arrested for it. But he claims that Vince McMahon planted that fan with instructions to spit on him so he'd get punched, because Vince obviously knew he'd punch him, in order to fire him.
That that the problem with this is that sounds absurd, but it is Vince.
Yeah, well, that assumes that Vince knows he's going to punch him, though, because guy could have spit on him and he could just said, "Nah, whatever," you know. So I don't know. It seems like a lot for the possibility of giving a reason, but Mr. McMahon, kind of a bad dude.
Allegedly.
So, yeah, allegedly. But that takes us to hour number 2. And we got Tony, Bobby, and Mike Tenay. And this is my favorite part. There is a weasel chant. Lee Marshall is so over. It's insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's good. And Bobby pissed. He doesn't like it. And it's good. It's good. We do a flashback where we see Chono apparently is now part of the New World Order. And then we go into our match. Our boy Ice Train going against Jerry Flynn. 3 minutes, 25 seconds. Tell me, Joseph.
To be specific, in case people get confused, this is Jerry Flynn. Like Scott said, Flynn with an F, not Jerry Lynn. Ice Train wins this pretty easily, but he also wins with an ankle lock. What? When did he start doing that? It's also the ugliest ankle lock I've ever seen. The match itself is whatever. I'm giving it a C. It's sadly better than most of what we get on Raw, so there you go.
And then this next part I love because it's perfect NWO. Ice Train celebrating his win, and Six comes out and says, "Yeah, whatever," and just immediately just introduces Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. They come out for an interview. They talk about Starrcade, talk about Faces of Fear. I liked it. What'd you think?
I also liked it. Six interviewing the outsiders and asking the hard-hitting questions everyone wants to know. What's with the bandana? That's his question. He's like, everybody wants to know about it. And then Nash says, "I'm looking sweet, aren't I?" Six asks what's in store at Starrcade. Hall says he's going to watch Hogan take care of that punk Piper. And then, being the people's choice like the NWO is, they're going to put their tag titles on the line against the Faces of Fear. Nash says he saw them in the back giving each other a play bath. Don't really know what that means, but okay.
Whoa.
I mean, I know what he's inferring. I just don't know what a play bath is. He says, "Why wait for Starrcade? Let's take them on tonight." The Outsiders and Six, to me, are the NWO, so I actually quite enjoyed this. I gave it a B.
I'm Googling. You might have heard the clippity clop of my keyboard as you were talking, because I'm looking at what play bath is. And I'm just getting like children's toys and stuff. We know what it means.
Yeah, we know the inference there. Yeah,
but I want to know how they know what that means. Because like that's a weirdly specific term that I haven't seen or heard, and I'm like, you done this, haven't you? You know something about these baths, these so-called play baths. Anyways, after that, there is a Sting promo that I feel like they should have played Spirit in the Sky to, because it's kind of wild. What did you think of this promo?
Well, it's not really a promo; it's a vignette, right?
Yeah.
Promo would imply that Sting is saying anything, which he is not. He's very specifically silent. I mean, it's fine. I don't think they need to do this. We're already pretty well hyped about Sting. I feel like the audience is very hyped about Sting every time he shows up. So I don't think you have to tell the audience, "Hey, remember Sting?" Like, no, they know what's going on, but is what it is. It's a choice I wouldn't have made, but it also doesn't hurt the show in any sort of way.
Yeah, and you know what else doesn't hurt the show?
Bobby Eaton versus Rey Mysterio Jr.
I mean, I was just going to say Rey Mysterio Jr. in action, but I guess we can include Bobby Eaton in that too. Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Bobby Eaton. 2 minutes, 47 seconds.
Poor Bobby Eaton. I actually like Bobby Eaton, even though his time has come and gone by this point. Bobby Eaton actually looks like he might win this match a couple times, like when he hits a massive diving knee drop. He goes back to the well, and Mysterio springs up and hits an avalanche Rana for the win in another very fun match. These TV matches, for the most part, have been great. I'm giving this another B.
Good night for the WCW, and it only gets better from here because we get the highlight of the night. Lee Marshall on the road in Macon, Georgia, where they're having a Nitro party, because there isn't a party like a Nitro party. Marshall tells us about all the people that are going to be there, including some fictional characters, and Bobby tells him that he needs to stop drinking the moonshine. I thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing. What did you think?
I love this because what he's specifically doing is referencing Little Richard. That this, by the way, this is my essay for the podcast this week. So just get ready. Buckle up, everybody. Here it comes. Lee is in Macon, Georgia, and quotes Macon's own Little Richard, saying they're going to have some fun tonight, which is a reference to the banger song Long Tall Sally that gets re-recorded by the Beatles in 1964 for the album A Hard Day's Night. However, it never made it onto the album and was released as a B-side single. For you young folks, singles back in the day weren't released as they are now. Now they're released by themselves digitally. Back then, they were released on a small vinyl record called a 45 for 45 rotations per minute on a turntable. A 33 is a standard album size. There are also 78s, but that's a completely different era of music, so we won't go into that. When a single was released, you would have an A-side and a B-side of the 45. The A-side was the widely played song on radio stations, with some B-sides also becoming hits. In the Beatles' case, good luck not finding a hit on either side. Long Tall Sally would eventually be featured on 2 Beatles albums in what is a confusing aspect of the early Beatles. In America and Britain, there are actually 2 different sets of Beatles' early albums. The correct and British chronology goes Please Please Me, With the Beatles, Hard Day's Night, Beatles for Sale, Help, Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Magical Mystery Tour, The Beatles, aka The White Album, Yellow Submarine, Let It Be, and finally Abbey Road. Don't come at me with Let It Be was the last album. It was recorded first and lived in purgatory and was released after Abbey Road. Trust me, I know more about this than you do. Not you, Scott. I mean the audience. In America, in America, the chronology is introducing the Beatles, Meet the Beatles' second album, A Hard Day's Night, Something New, Beatles 65, Beatles 6, Help, Rubber Soul, Yesterday and Today, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Magical Mystery Tour, The White Album, Yellow Submarine, Let It Be, and finally Abbey Road. The reason for this is because America is stupid, actually has more to do with the record labels. In Britain, the record label that the Beatles used was called EMI, technically Parlophone, but they were owned by EMI. In the US, the first album was released.
Calm down there, Bret Hart, with your Americans are stupid. Jeez.
In the US, the first album was released by the label VJ, but future albums were released by Capitol Records because Capitol could create extra albums with the already released singles. They would. So songs like Long Tall Sally is actually on the US album, the Beatles' second album, even though it isn't featured on any UK albums. The Beatles albums, even the ones with same names, like A Hard Day's Night or Help, never lined up in track listings. Sometimes even featured different covers. The US version of Help has a gorgeous red cover that the traditional version does not. It isn't until Sgt. Pepper's that the albums began to sync up. However, even with those, you can tell which one is American versus which one is British. The American albums feature a Capitol Records label, whereas the British albums feature the Apple Records label that is far cooler and more highly sought after by collectors like me. The second album that Long Tall Sally is featured on is part of the Past Masters series. These are just compilations of the aforementioned singles, and there are 2 volumes. Volume 1 has Long Tall Sally. Going back to the Lee Marshall report, Lee Marshall says They will feature Long Tall Sally, Uncle John, and a number of other references from the song. These are all characters that are in that song. Saying they will even see the rare Gordonian guzzling weasel in reference to Bobby Heenan, wrapping up our road report, and I gave it an A+. It's phenomenal.
I was getting to the point where I was going to say, what does any of this have to do with Lee Marshall? But then you tied a bow on it. Oh, chef's kiss, my friend. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. You know who else is on the road?
Oh, God, I know, and I don't even want to talk about it. Go ahead.
Chris Benoit and the woman. They're in Europe, and they're madly in love. It's uncomfortable. What did you think of this?
This is probably the one thing on this show that I genuinely hate. I gave it an F. It's like you said, it's incredibly uncomfortable. Also, it'll make me laugh in a week when Benoit is like, I don't like these allegations of us like having an affair. Bro, you literally sent videos in of you having an affair. Whatever. Yeah, I didn't like it. I got an F.
Well, all right. And that brings us to the moment of the night. We're going to have Sting in action. Ric Flair. Or not Ric Flair. Man, I wish. Rick Steiner.
I gotta pull you back real quick, Scott. We got a match before that. We got Taskmaster versus Arn Anderson.
You know, thank you for calling me. I mean, I gave away the finish here. But let's get back to it. You're right. And because the Chris Benoit thing bled so perfectly into this, I would have had a great segue, but instead I went forward in my notes. I decided that I didn't want to talk about Kevin Steiner and Chris man, did I have a brain aneurysm? Kevin Sullivan, Chris Benoit. I just really want to talk about Rick Steiner and Sting, not this match. But
Thranananga, homie, Thranananga.
Yeah, a lot of them on that one. But anyways, Kevin Sullivan versus Arn Anderson. Arn better beat his ass, Joseph, right? 3 minutes, 52 seconds.
The two men just go to town on each other, including massive chair shots. Arn gets irate by Sullivan, and because he can't see, he DDTs the ref, which made me laugh. I thought it was very, very well done. Sullivan takes advantage until Arn hits a low blow. Hugh Morris runs down straight into a DDT. Conan runs into a fist. Jimmy Hart gets thrown in, and finally Sullivan slams Arn with a wooden chair and gets the win. I actually did like how they handled this, and I gave this a B.
Yeah, not a bad match. We don't hate Kevin Sullivan's in-ring abilities. We actually kind of enjoy him when matches like this, where it's just kind of two old-fashioned dudes going at it. But my boy Arn lost, so I have to hate it on principle. What I don't hate, though, is this next match, which isn't really a match.
No.
Rick Steiner versus Sting. We've been going at this for several weeks. If you recall, the story is Rick Steiner came back from Europe and he just didn't really know what the hell was going on with Sting. And Sting didn't really appreciate any of it because the funny thing is Rick Steiner didn't really even say anything negative. He was just like, what is Sting doing up there? And Sting now has this vendetta against the guy. And they're supposed to have a match. But we don't get a match, Joseph. What do we get instead?
What we get is fake Sting comes out and holds the ropes open for real Sting. Real Sting disarms fake Sting's bat and hits him with the Scorpion Death Drop, and then real Sting leaves. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I love what they're doing with Sting. I gave it an A+.
Yeah, it was good. And, there's also the whole bat thing where Sting's like giving people bats. Rick kind of tosses the bat at Sting as he heads through the crowd. It stole is Sting WCW or is he NWO? Who knows? He's Scorpion Death Drop or Step. What am I doing?
Thranananga.
I'm getting your flu. I'm getting your flu waves through the tubes. He hit the NWO Sting with a Scorpion Death Drop, so he's clearly got to be WCW, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know. But what I do know is after that, Hulk Hogan, Ted DiBiase, the Giant, Vincenzo, and Elizabeth all head out to the ring. Hogan talking some shit about Roddy Piper, as one is to do. And he tells Vinny to go find Piper. But he's not here. And when Vince returns, he says Piper ran away, ran out the back door because he heard Hogan was looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so since they can't beat Piper's ass tonight, they're just gonna vogue it. They're just gonna pose in the ring.
Yeah.
I kind of liked it. What did you think?
I gave it a C+. It's fine. There's literally nothing else to write about. What you said is exactly what happens. Hogan does say NWO-ites again because he's getting that over. He does force Liz to kiss him, which is probably art imitating life. So there you go.
Yeah.
Hogan's Macho Man also takes a stray in this. I don't remember what he says, but I think he calls him like a coward or something like that. So whatever. I give it a C+. It's fine.
Well, that goes into our main event, though. World Tag Team Championship, Outsiders versus the Faces of Fear. What happens, Joseph, in this? Gotta go back to my notes here. I don't got a time, so tell me.
They just start brawling. Then Big Bubba from the Dungeon of Doom rolls in and starts attacking his stablemates, the Faces of Fear. Sullivan runs in and Bubba knocks him out. Conan runs in and Dungeon of Doom, and it's Dungeon of Doom versus the NWO. The Giant gets involved as well as Bagwell and Wall Street. Then WCW members run in. Scott Norton is fighting with the NWO, so clearly he has now also joined as well as Big Bubba in the same segment. Sting comes down to the ring and Arn attacks him and Sting fights off Arn. He also fights off Mongo, and then Rey Mysterio jumps on his back and he throws Rey off. And it's speculated that he actually has joined the NWO because he has attacked none of them. I gave this one a C+. It's pretty convoluted. It's not my favorite segment of Sting's. It also doesn't let it breathe that Big Bubba and Scott Norton have both joined the NWO, which I guess neither of them are huge names, so that's I guess okay. But it was just they I think they just squished a little bit too much together. I know what they were trying to do. I applaud them for it, but I just think it fell a little bit flatter than they wanted, so I gave it a C+.
Yeah, well, first of all, wait, Sting's NWO now? 15 seconds ago, he was WCW. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, this is one of Bischoff's famous pull-aparts, right? So that's how we end the night. We ended on a pull-apart. But let me tell you, Joseph, you can't pull me away from this podcast because we got December 16th, 1996, WWF Raw at the Ice Palace in Tampa, Florida. Because I got to roll here, man, because we got to get you out of here on time because you're not feeling well. Let's start it off. Bret Hart. He's mad. He's mad about what happened last night. Tell me about it, Joseph.
Bret Hart, he's mad. That's yeah, no shit. He's always mad. Bret says his mom always told him to never ruin an apology with an excuse. You don't want to justify apologies. You know what I mean?
You do not.
But he has to come up with an excuse because there is no good reason why he's not the 4-time WWF champion. He says things aren't the same in the WWF. You can't tell who your friends or enemies are. The problem with the WWF is there are no rules. Bret says he doesn't need any rules. He calls HBK a prissy, says HBK has set out since day one to cost him the world title. Shawn can't accept that Bret is better. He announces he'll be in the Royal Rumble. He says he will be at commentary. Look, this is a Bret promo, so it isn't very good, and it's way too fucking long. What I said were all good points, but I condensed the shit out of what he says. I gave it a D.
Yeah, too much. Less is more with Bret Hart. After that, though, we got Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vader in a tough man contest. Is this like when they get all oiled up with the baby oil and pose and shit, and they just whoever poses the best wins? Joseph, tell me.
No, that's Triple H versus Scott Steiner. We'll get there.
Whoa!
Bret says he won't get involved in this match. Austin taunts Bret, which mercifully stops Hart from stumbling all over his fucking words about friends and enemies and forgiveness or lack thereof. I don't know. He goes on a weird diatribe. And then after a while, Bret attacks Austin and puts him in the sharpshooter. And Austin wins this match via DQ. Vader is understandably mad about that and attacks Bret Hart. That won't lead to anything, which I think is kind of an odd choice in that. Hart kind of fights him off and then puts Austin back in the sharpshooter, and that's how the segment closes. Overall, the match is good. I like the Austin and Bret Hart continuing thing, so I'm going to give this a B.
Not a bad way to start the night. I liked it. After that, though, we go to some a flashback to last night where Ahmed Johnson has something to say to Farouk. And Joseph, what does Ahmed have to say?
Thranananga.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Ahmed. You tell him, buddy. You tell him. After that, we got Razor Ramon and Diesel. Well, fake Razor, fake Diesel versus the Godwins. Who the fuck cares? Tell me, Joseph.
My first note is kill me now. My second note is the fake outsiders win. I gave it an F.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. After that, we talked to Sid. He's feeling good about the Royal Rumble. Thinks he's going to beat Sean. What do you think, Joseph?
Yeah, he's gloating and says no one can take the title from him. Vince announces HBK versus Sid at the Royal Rumble. Sid doesn't care. He thrives under adversity. He says Sean is going to go 10 feet up and 10 feet down. He also tells Jose Lothario to stay home. Gave us a C. It's not a bad Sid promo. It's not a good Sid promo. I did really like the 10 feet up and 10 feet down line, though.
And then we go to Sean, who Sean says, you keep Jose Lothario's name out your damn mouth. He also says Bret Hart can kiss his ass. What'd you make of this? I don't think Bret liked it.
Absolutely not. HBK says he's been humiliated before, so he isn't worried about potentially losing in Texas. His problem is what Sid did to Jose, and as a bonus for beating Sid, he'll get back the title. He says he isn't going to cry and whine like Bret Hart. Really good line, also factual. He says that Bret can dress as a wrestler for 24 hours, but he'll never be HBK. Also a very good line, because one of Bret Hart's big things is that, HBK dresses like, a prissy and all these things. We're like, well, you dress like a wrestler and you're still not me. Really well done from HBK. Overall, this is not HBK's best promo, even though he does have some good lines in it. But mostly it's because Vin Man keeps trying to get him to say more when Sean has clearly wrapped up the promo. And then Vin Man wants more from him. And it's like, no, the promo was done. Like, he did his job. And he knows that. You could see Sean registering it like, we finished. What are we doing? So I gave it a B- because Vin Man can't get out of his own way.
But I'm going to get out of my own way and talk about the next match where we got Doug Furnace and Phil LaFon versus TJ Hooker and Professor Xavier. Tell me about it. That's not their real names. It's TL Hopper and Dr. X versus Doug Furnace and Phil LaFon. Joseph, what the hell?
Dr. X is Tom Pritchard. Poor Tom Pritchard. He cannot get a break in WWF. This is bad, and the Canadians win, and I gave it an F.
It kind of sucks because, I think people probably are under the false premise that we don't like Doug Furnace and Phil LaFon. We actually think they're pretty good wrestlers. They're a good tag team. They wrestle well together. They just have no character, no storyline, and it's terrible. It's terrible. I actually like the guys. It's just they're doing nothing. They got nothing. They're doing nothing. And then probably the saddest part of the night is the fact that the Milton Bradley Karate Fighter Tournament gets the most story of anything we see.
Yes, absolutely.
It is the final with Sable and Jerry. Sable wins, and then all hell breaks loose. Joseph, do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to talk about it?
I mean, I don't, but I will because I got notes on it.
Okay.
This shit is live. So all the other ones have been pre-taped. This one is actually live. Why? Sable comes with Mark Marrow, so Jerry has Hunter Hearst Helmsley come out with him. I hate this whole fucking thing. Sable wins. Ultimately, Jerry the King and Hunter beat up Marrow, and then Goldust saves him, and then Jerry insinuates that Goldust is gay before formally accusing him, and I'm going to quote here because this is what he says, of being a queer, and Goldust punches him. Gets an F. Fucking hated it.
Minus the queer line. I loved this.
Really?
because I loved it from a it's so bad it's good kind of thing,
Oh,
where
gotcha.
you and I have been suffering watching Raw every week. And then this is just the most absurd thing I've ever seen. This is a karate fighter segment that has more story
Mm-hmm.
than anything else we've seen. It was insane, and I laughed so hard I cried. I think it might have just been a mental break. Like, I might have just snapped, but I was like, what is going on? Why is this a thing? And oh my God, did he just call him a slur? It was
Yes,
like,
he
dude,
did.
the whole thing was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Speaking of what the hell, our main event.
Yeah.
It's Bart Gunn and Billy Gunn. Haven't we already done this?
Some say they're still doing it to this day, Scott.
Well, tell me about this barn burner of a match.
My first note is kill me now. Bart ultimately hits a stun gun on Billy, and Billy stops moving. The ref calls the match. Billy and Bart's wives run into the ring, and everyone is in tears. So, Billy is actually nursing some injuries during this time. He had also very recently recovered from a neck injury not that much longer before this. This is being used to write him off to recover from his nagging injuries as the show closes. I at least get the idea behind this, so I don't really hate it as much as some of the other nonsense we've seen. So for that reason, because they had a creative way to write him out, I'm going to give it a C, but it's not good.
After our talk on the Patreon about the healthcare system in professional wrestling, really exciting stuff per $2 a month, ladies and gentlemen. Really exciting stuff where you can hear really in-depth conversations about healthcare in the wrestling industry. I'm pleased by the fact that at least they're giving the dude some time to recover, even though it's kind of an absurd way to do it with this, like he paralyzed the dude with the stun gun or something. I don't know. But that's kind of how I feel about Raw altogether. I just don't know. I don't know. But I also know that that's the end. And I'm going to ask you who won, but I also know the answer to that question. So, Joseph, tell me who won this week in the Monday Night Wars.
I'm not even going to milk this. It was WCW.
It had to be.
Yeah.
It had to be. You know, the last couple of weeks, hour one has kind of been a stinker on WCW, not great.
Right.
And then hour two makes up for it, and we're sold. But this week, the whole episode was pretty good.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, at WWF, the only real story you get, I mean, you get the Brett and Sean feud. I'm not discounting that. But the biggest thing, the most time devoted, was the Karate Fighters final.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing over at WWF?
No one knows.
Like, I would love to have been a fly on the wall at meetings, at creative meetings, where they're talking through stuff. Like, did they think this was gonna work? I don't know. Joseph is shrugging. He's at a loss for words.
This is just all bad.
And so am I. Yeah, oh, and it's not gonna get better for a while yet. But here we are. Here I stand. And it's all I can do. On behalf of Joseph and myself, thank you again for listening to the Monday Night Wars, and we will be back, and we will keep going, because Netflix and Reed Hastings, you son of a bitch, you can't stop us. Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.